Hi, everyone. This is Tara from Peaceful Pathways Quantum Healing, and we have the most magnificent Lin Porter here with us, who is extremely wise and connected. So welcome, Lin. How are you?
Thank you. How lovely to be here tonight.
Hey. So you hail from the UK. You have this magnificent program that you've been downloaded called the Wych Hazel Project. But let's just hear a little bit about the background. So, like, how did this get started?
Well, my background is as an educationalist and a therapist and a healer. And many years ago, I wrote a herbal course, and early 2019, I was working with my guides and they said, well, you've got to upgrade this herbal course. I thought, I've been there, done that, got the t-shirt, really? We're going back and doing that again. Whoa, was that a wrong thing to say? I said, no, this is called the New Earth Energy Herbal Course. Okay. So you know how it is when you wander through synchronicities and you go down all these different pathways and different things happen, and then you join up the dots and there's an almighty aha that comes at the end.
I love the ahas.
You know that feeling, the aha moment. Well, for many years now, I've been doing something called Pat's Garden. Pat was my mother. She is now in the spirit world. She lived gardens. And it inspired me, but that's a whole other story. I ended up going synchronistically to somebody else's Pat's Garden, and it was in the middle of December, around about that whole 2019 time, which, as we know, was just leading us into one of the biggest shifts, one of the biggest energy flux times that we had. And in this garden, mid-December, you can imagine there wasn't a lot out, but there's the incredible perfume in the air. And in this garden, it was called Pat's Garden for a reason, because of a very well-known horticulturalist lived there. And she dedicated part of this garden to a whole range of witch hazel trees. Now, witch hazel is actually Hamamelis. Its name is Hamamelis. And those of you that use natural medicines will know witch hazel or Hamamelis, wonderful. It's a clear liquid. You put it onto your bruises and it helps, or bumps, and it brings the bruises out and they clear up very quickly. Homeopathically, it works in the same way. But this perfume was something like I'd never smelled. It really called me to this part of the garden. I always go with a camera everywhere because I work a lot with the Fae, with the nature realm and the nature kingdom. And I'm always getting the call to get the camera out, and I never know why until I come back and download it, and then I find the most amazing things in there, which is a whole other part of my work.
Oh, how fantastic.
Back to the witch hazels.
Yes.
Back to the witch hazels. Okay, I knew I just had to photograph them, and I photographed each one, and I photographed the little name tab on it. And with permission of the owner of the garden, I was just able to take one of each of the flowers, and I got like loads of little bottles of water, tiny little bottles of water, just pure water, and I put the witch hazels in them. And I thought I've got to make essences for these, which again is another part of my work, which is called quantum imprinting, but that's another story. Back to the witch hazels. I made essences of 12 of these witch hazels, and after I make them, I usually put them out on an appropriate moon cycle for a day and a night. I put them into water, and the water goes out. The sunlight solarizes it because water holds memory. It has a memory capacity because of the unique what they call covalent bonding, the way the hydrogen and the oxygen bind together, and it wraps around itself and it has memory, which of course goes back to the origins of homeopathy or classical homeopathy with Dr. Hahnemann. So putting these things in sunlight like takes a photograph of them, it solarizes it. Of course, sun is electrical energy, so we've got that electrical memory from the plant material. I then leave it out overnight under the moon, and the moon is magnetic. So that leaves a magnetic memory. So you've got electromagnetic memory stored in the memory banks of the water. So then we have to preserve it. So it gets preserved, it gets mixed 50-50 with brandy to make what we call a mother tincture. And that preserves it ad infinitum. There's no shelf life on that.
You were divinely led to this garden, and you were able to get these photographs and these samples, and then you knew you just had to create these tinctures. When did the rest of the downloads come into play?
Well, I also got the names of these very rare witch hazel flowers. After they're made, I have a pyramid, which is made to the precise measurements and ratios of the Egyptian pyramids.
Wonderful.
I leave them in there to potentize, and then they get put in a box. I mean, I have got some pretty vintage essences because I've been collecting them for decades. And I never gave these another thought, other than I knew that I had 12 and there was one missing. They needed to be 13, but I didn't know why at that point. And there they sat. They sat there till round about April, May time this year. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, a lady contacted me and said her guide had told her to go and ask Lin Porter about the witch hazels. Okay, so we've got some more dots here to join up, haven't we? So she said, I don't understand why I'm having this conversation with you, but does it make any sense to you? And I was going, well, actually, yes, it does. It makes a lot of sense.
Thank God she trusted herself. Yes.
Absolutely. And what was happening was it was time for them to be activated. They needed to wake up. They needed to be used. So, okay, I get them out, and I thought, I still got that there's one missing. There's one missing. It's a combination of intuition, synchronicity, and going down the Google rabbit hole. And then the journey kind of like starts to make sense because you can start to link things up then. Anyway, this was so strong, but I'm sure you know Joanna Wooten, very talented, lovely practitioner.
Yes.
Jo and I work a lot together on the quantum imprinting program, which we perhaps might go into another time.
I would love that. Absolutely.
Oh, this is really going down a rabbit hole, and it's finding our way around the matrix tonight.
Yes. So this 13th, tell me, how did it come?
How did the 13 come? Right. There was all I got was that it was a white one, because these are beautiful flowers, but they tend to be beautiful yellows, oranges going into the red zone. So if you correlate that, they're working with the lower chakras, the lower energy centers. Yeah.
Yes.
But the one I got was a white one, and I thought, you can't get a white witch hazel, can you? Apparently you can. Apparently you can, and it's quite rare. And this is where the synchronicities come in, because it's called a ruby snow. Now, Ruby was my beautiful boxer dog. She's not with me anymore. And when I set up a centre in Glastonbury, which was a respite centre for children and families with challenging behaviours, I had it was a lovely place. That's a whole other story. But that's where I came across my rescue pig, Daisy. And it was the first time that it snowed in Glastonbury for goodness knows how long. Very big spiritual centre in England. And my boxer dog, who's best friends with Daisy, my pet pig, brought her out of the barn and they played in the snow. And I got bits of film of this, and it was Ruby showing Daisy how to play in snow. It's a magical movie, but I called it Ruby Snow. And so I thought, I know something about this. I'm beginning to feel
my goosebumps.
I know. Let me go back to Jo, because I was telling Jo all of this strange stuff. I have got the Ruby Snow now, so I have got the 13th
I do want to know how you got it, of course.
There was only one. garden centre in the whole of the UK that had it, and it was about 3 miles down the road from me, and it was the last plant.
Get out.
And it's hanging outside my front door now. I've made an essence from the leaf, which is this beautiful ruby colour, and within the next, I would say 4 or 5 weeks, in time for when we need it, we should have the white flower out, so I can then put them together and I'll have the ruby snow. But going back to my work with Joe, because I was getting all this information, I said it's something to do with the chakras. When you look at these beautiful flowers, they look like the spinning energy of chakras. It's something to do with that, and with the colours, and with the white one, which is balancing the other 3 lower ones out. Well, anyway, she got back to me and she said, you do know about the cosmic chakra system, which is a yogic practice. I said, well, I've heard about it, but I've not studied it. So, you know, you dive in to the you got it. One way to get down.
So here this whole time when you're telling this story, I figured you had known about that at the time, but so then you were led to study about that. I love it because you knew it before you knew it. How wonderful.
And there are 13 cosmic chakras. Now it gets more and more interesting.
Oh my goodness.
Because these beautiful witch hazels have incredible names. For example, this month it's we're working with on our self-mastery journey, because these are the rungs on the ladder. These witch hazels are the rungs on the ladder of the self-mastery journey, which we started in June. A group of people who are intuitives, therapists, healers, spiritual counselors.
Yes, I know quite a few.
Are aware of the self-mastery process being about blending the kind of egoic self, the 3D self, if you like, the little me, the one that gets stuck in a traffic jam and wants to go, you know, with the higher self.
Yeah, well,
the one that goes, you know, the one that goes, just sit in the back seat, be quiet, and just let me take over, you know, the higher self. So
here to merge heaven on earth. Yes, exactly.
The 3D, 5D relationship with higher self. And that journey over the last 6 months has been incredible, because I can just stand back now and things have a very different outcome, and my life is changing beyond how I would ever imagine. But let me tell you about the name of these beautiful witch hazels. They have a link with the chakras, and this has another link with the full moons. And then let me just give you an example.
Sure.
This month we're working with the beaver moon. The full moon is the beaver moon, and the beaver moon, or the beaver full moon lunation, it's all about you busy as a beaver. You're shoring things up, you're getting your resources together for what you need. It's very much getting what you need around you in preparation. And of course, astrologically, I'm not an astrologer, but I do love listening to people who are professional astrologers, because it always, where the moon is within that particular constellation is quite significant. And of course, we are going through, to say the whole planet is in a state of flux at the moment on a macrocosmic level, but within our own lives on a microcosmic level, we are in an unprecedented time of flux, of change. Yes. And so bringing in the higher self is quite a helpful thing to do at this time.
Oh, absolutely.
So this month witch hazel is German's gold. And German gold basically goes back to about the 1600s, the time of King Charles I. He was a court person who really climbed his way up the ladder, and he ingratiated himself, you know, into the court life. He allegedly had an extramarital affair with Charles I's wife, and he was obsessed with getting gold, and he was also a glutton. The best of foods, and he get all these titles, the Earl of this and the Duke of that, and with that came huge privileges, and it was all about exploitation of people to get the very, very best for himself. And German's gold Okay, so that's teaching us something about beavering away and getting our resources together. What is of value? What is true value? This is all about our relationships with people around us and our possessions and what we need and what do we mean by value. So we've got this link coming in here. The chakra that we're working with, and these are the 13 chakra systems. Most of us are familiar with the kind of holistic 7 chakras, but that's just sort of nodal points, junction boxes in a whole energy, electrical, magnetic system. Behind each of those chakras, there's like a hidden door, a little bit like the secret garden. And the way these witch hazels work is they kind of open up these hidden door chakras, which allow the higher self to come in at that chakra level. So it gives us that higher perspective, that higher understanding at each of the levels that we're working through. So by looking at the, I suppose we would call it fool's gold, but I know in metal that's called parites. It's not that. But fool's gold is the possession, it's the perception, the perception of what is valuable to you. And that it is a false value to think it is about money or gold or possessions or soup and gold, which was the story that was written by about this court guy who did himself well. And it's very much about seeing through the illusions of that. And actually, because of the kind, I mean, you know, the whole world is going through this global change, but in the UK, we're probably leading the world in terms of an economic crisis at the moment, because a lot of the establishment are working with fixations on this fool's gold principle. And they're coming in one after the other, these prime ministers and things, some of them not lasting very long. And each one is doing things to the economy, which is based on a false understanding of what value is all about. So very much that's an energetic that we're all working with at the moment. And so to have higher self come in and go, actually, you don't want to touch that, you walk away from that situation, is a really useful signposting to have at this time.
I think that's fantastic. And in that way, if everybody worked on themselves through those issues, obviously our outer reality would reflect that. And so while we can't always have a large impact on the large scale collective, by working on ourselves, clearly we can make a difference just doing that. This program that you're running, this is being offered to the public at large.
It is indeed. And the beauty of this program is you don't sort of need to start it in January or end in December. And you don't have to stop after 13 months. Interestingly enough, coming back to the 13, apart from the 13 chakras, there are some years where there are 13 full moons in a year. And that 13th moon is called a blue moon as well. So there are all these kind of jigsaw puzzles that fit into this absolutely incredible math. The whole idea is you come into it when the time is right. You find out about it, you hear about it, you sense about it, just like that lady that phoned up out of the blue and said, I've got to ask you something about witch hazels. Really? What are witch hazels?
That's incredible. And even the whole program, it wasn't ready until it was ready.
Absolutely. And it all kind of like came together, and the amount of information that came through from the guides, not just the herbal guides, but you know, the personal guides that I've got that are helping me with this herbal program. And it was, now is the time to do this. This is what it's all about. I do I mean, one of the things that I do, I'm an artist as well, and a published writer as well. But when I take the photographs, I actually put them through a process where I can see the energy definition in it. And just by meditating with some of these prints that I do through the original photograph that separate out all the energy delineations, you suddenly start to see things in those pictures that make sense to you. What makes sense to you might not make the same as it does to me. It's like when the guides speak to us, they talk to us in terms of our own perceptions, on our own understanding and our own associations.
Indeed.
So too do these pictures, because the pictures themselves form energy portals. And having worked since childhood with the Fae, when they come in, you know about it. You know, you start getting some very interesting information about things, and again you'll get the synchronicities around it. So I usually ask for the, you know, the rule of 3, and the 3 synchronicities come and actually work around that. So yes, I mean, you can keep going on these. You don't just have to go through the 13 cycle once. You can come in whenever you want to. You can come out whenever you want to and dip in. Intuitively, you will know that, because the whole thing is about forming that kind of conscious, loving, trusting relationship with higher self. And, you know, I think higher self and the whole concept of this and the proximity and the relationship of this is something that we've all encountered and learned on our spiritual questing. But this is kind of a bad day, a couple of days ago, and again this was about the concept behind Germain's gold and the mind of God, which is the chakra that we're working with. And I was thinking, where do I go from here? And the higher self came in, and I got these pictures, and this picture was an extended limo, this vision pulled up. And higher self held the back door open and said, enjoy the journey today. And I thought, that's get in the back seat, stop going this way, that way, whichever way, just let it happen. And I did. I coasted through that day, enjoying the journey, enjoying the view.
Well, isn't that the thing? So just today, one of my guides, June, he was showing me, he said there's many ways to go, but the only one that's going to go up is the steps that appear when they're ready. You can go that way, you can go that way, but if you want to go up, you just have to be there in the present moment and take the steps as they present themselves. So I think it's wonderful that you've presented yourself to the collective to assist humanity at this time. So we have these witch hazels. I think you mentioned something about, and we all know that just by the person setting the intention, like, here, I mean business, I'm going to start something, I'm going to follow through with it, I'm going to finish it, you know, opens up the readiness for the guides to come in and to help. But the witch hazels themselves, the essences, are opening gateways. Is that correct?
Yes. So each chakra has got a hidden gateway behind it, and that gateway is like secret garden thing, isn't it? That is the way that you know, that connection is made with the higher self. And you know what else is interesting with this is there are 2 other things, because we're all different. Yes, we're all going through this change, but we all come from a different place. We've all had different experiences. We are all unique. Very so true. You know, this is where conventional medicine kind of falls down, in my opinion. You know, that it's one size, one pill, one dosage fits all. We know that it's not like that. We're not made.
They're not even looking at the energetics behind the physicality. Yes,
yeah, that's taking us down that kind of quantum imprinting thing that we'll do another day. But
can't wait.
In terms of the self-mastery journey, we are all different, and our relationship throughout our life, be it an easy one or a difficult one or a fragmented one with higher self, inner tuition, is different for each of us. So there are 2 things that come alongside the witch hazels. One is, and I have to mention this, it's another essence that I made, and it's a buttercup essence. And again, this came along at the time. This comes in with the Germain's gold as well. Jo got in touch with me the one morning, and she said, because our guides kind of like work with both of us and collectively.
Isn't that wonderful?
Which is always interesting. that would be a good conversation to have.
Oh, you are so fun and fascinating. This is great. Okay, so Buttercup. Yeah, what did she say?
Yeah, Jo said to me, this was before the June was the first lot that came out. So it came out round about the solstice, the summer solstice. But anyway, she said, you're going to go out today, she said, and you're going to see this green area, and the flowers are just going to be so mind-blowing. They're going to be so bright. Just look out for it. Anyway, I did. I went out for my walk, and the way the sun was incredible that day. And there was a field of buttercups.
Oh,
and it sparkled like a field of gold,
oh,
shining.
I have goosebumps again.
And I didn't know they were buttercups. They were just these gold, but like gold, like you wouldn't have seen it. There isn't a Christmas decoration on the planet that could be anywhere near the quality, gives me the energy quality of these buttercups. And basically, the guidance that I had with these buttercups is their filters. So when you take the witch hazels, you don't have to worry about, is that going to be too strong? Is that going to be whatever? What's that going to do? Because this is a personalized filter. And so it works just with where you are, and it's a stabilizer. So it stabilizes the energy of these activators. The witch hazel, the activators. The buttercup, which you have with every one of them, they go out every month with whatever witch hazel we're working on that month. And they will actually act as a balancer. So you know that you're taking just the right amount for you. So higher self can kind of mold that to support our own individual situations where we are. So there's no way of having too strong a dose or too weak a dose or an inappropriate dose. If it's not meant for you, it won't, but it like titrates exactly the right amount for you or me or whoever. And so they go out, but also the guidance comes the month before. And there is always a third essence that goes out that some people might want to take or not. This month it's actually an essence. I have a radionic code, so I use that as an imprint, and it's for monatomic gold. And there are particular types of monatomic gold. So it's also to do with the alchemy. Now, if you think about that, we're looking at really giving value, not monetary value or a kind of greed value to something, an accumulative value. We're looking at things that really are authentic to our heart value. And
sure.
Value.
There's many different kinds of abundance. It's not all physical.
And so this monatomic gold that we've got alongside it, and you might want to take it, you might not. Intuitively you will know whether you want to take it. But again, what that does is it helps you to see difficult situations from a higher perspective.
I've been taking that for a long time, actually. I didn't realize that.
Oh, how are you finding that?
It's been so long. I mean, well, it's mixed in with the trace minerals that I take, which with mediumship, a lot of times I feel a bit depleted in that area. So if somebody here in the States were interested in participating, they would connect to you. And how would one receive the essences? Because I'm sure lots of people will want to know.
There are two ways we can do this. The one is they can be posted out, and depending which part of the states that you're in, depends on the ease of delivery and how you're going to get it. I would certainly wrap them in aluminium foil to send them out to protect them going through any kind of radiation machines on that. And then of course we have to look at the postage between the UK and the US. But we can do that and work out the best way of doing it. There is another way of doing this, and I did say earlier on that I've been a healer for many years. I've worked in healing in a lot of different guises, and I'm going back now to about 2000. No, it was before that. Yeah, it would probably be about 2000. And the Healing Association that I belonged to then, which was run by my spiritual mentor at the time, was given a legacy. And because of the work that I was doing at the time, which was a program called HET, H-E-T, Holistic Educational Therapy, which was working with children with extremely challenging behaviours and working with families and schools to kind of ease that challenge.
Wonderful.
Because of my work, and it got quite well known, it was endorsed by the United Nations.
Fantastic.
And incidentally, I have all those resources available and they're freely downloadable. So if anybody wants them, they can message me. I've got everything out there now, so everybody can have that. But at that particular time, I was given some money to be able to invest in my work. And I bought a very unusual machine, and it's a radionics machine and a homeopathic machine, and it's very unique. And somebody mentioned to me that a certain gentleman in a place called Meriden in Birmingham in the West Midlands in the UK was selling these. Now, Meriden in Birmingham is the height of industrialization, or it was. And they had huge car building plants all around this place. I mean, this particular area of Birmingham was like industry on steroids, you know, it was everywhere. I went to pick up this machine, which at that time cost £1,000. That was the gift that I was given to get this machine to work with. And I went into this house, to this address, and this was a really ancient Elizabethan Tudor cottage on its own, in the middle of an industrialized monster, you know, landscape. And as soon as I went on the path and I knocked on the door to pick up the machine, because it had been paid for by the foundation, and this beautiful gentleman was like, "I've been expecting you, my dear, come on in." And there was something very interesting about him, very esoteric. He was in fact a time traveler. He told me, because I was saying, "How do I use this thing?" He said, "You use it intuitively." And I haven't shared the story of the time traveler with many of them, because I was kind of in this weird space. I left with this suitcase with this machine under my arm, thinking how wonderful. And you know, I tried to go back to that address afterwards many times, and it wasn't there.
There's
nobody knew about it. I mean,
no words. This is phenomenal. You just can't make this stuff up. This is
no. I mean, you know, I have tried to write a book about this.
You have, so you have this machine. And is this relative to the topic we're going to be talking about with the imprinting, or is this
yes, it's totally, because you say, how do you do it? I can actually transmit the frequencies of these essences. It's a little bit like a photocopy, where you put it on one side and a photocopy comes out on the other side. It's all all I need for that from people for me to send, and I have been sending it, and I have been sending it to a lady in the States, and she knows exactly when I send it. She feels it coming through. So we've done all our little experiments with it, but all I need is it's called the witness. So I have a photograph, date of birth, and address. So that's 3 things. That's the witness statement. I put that in that little compartment. I put the essences in the other, and then I can transmit it at whatever strength that it needs to, which is called the frequency. And these are universal harmonics that I'm transmitting at as a strength. And they correspond also to the work of Dr. Samuel Hahnemann, who was the father of classical homeopathy. I mentioned him earlier.
Yes.
He had a very mysterious thing that not many people knew about, which was called QL, and that was part of how he did his strengths.
Tell me. Oh, you have everything. I just have so many more questions, but I will, I guess, save it. So this wonderful program that you can start any time of the year, and you could, so it doesn't matter what month, and now we know how to get access to it. There's something having to do with support groups we haven't talked about yet, so maybe you can just share
something to do with the
support. There is a connection or connections that are made during the process that you're going through it, so it's not all sort of a solitary program where you're working just with yourself and the essence.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
And there is a support thing alongside this. So you can either have them physically or you can have them transmitted every day. So let's park that to one side. Going back to saying that we are all different. We're all in different situations. We're all trying to get to the same place, which is this 5D, 3D merging that's happening, so that higher self is consciously working with us and through us. And it does, because I find myself in situations that I go, I can't deal with this, higher self, come in please. And then I hear myself saying something, and it's like a very conscious type of mediumship, but I know that it's not the guides, because that feels different. I know that it's higher self. It's a different quality of, and I say and do things and I think, where did that come from? Because it handles
blessed be.
But what is important is that in going through this process, very often, well, we have to release stuff, and we don't want to release that stuff. We hold on to a lot of this stuff with knuckle white fingers going on. Basically, because although we've held on to it for many years, since childhood, in most cases, we're still here, so I'm not going to let go, because I don't know what I'll do if I do let go of it. So that needs support, and everybody's going to go through that. I'm sure most people will have gone through the long dark night of the soul. When people are in a situation, they need that personal support.
Yes.
So they have a one-to-one, and very often that can be other essences coming in, and they can be quantum imprintedly and sent out. With the quantum imprints, the guides will come in. So the person concerned, their guide will come in, our guides will come in. So Joe and I do a lot of this work together, and through that we can work on the quantum imprints. And this has been a whole other learning story, but we can make that personally, we can get that out to people, we can get that in the post, or we can get it transmitted immediately.
That's
if people
wonderful.
Need it. So there is the personal support available for that, and also to talk it through. We have meetings every particular month.
Is that held on Zoom?
What is interesting is we have those groups on Zoom.
Gotcha.
On Zoom.
Okay.
So people can have, and it's only people on the program that come in on this. We've got a lot of therapists and healers on there, and they're having experiences which is upgrading their own healing techniques, and obviously that's okay sharing with fellow practitioners who are working at that level, but they're personal to the group that's in there.
Of course.
Understanding of what's happening and what's going on. So there's all this escalation in techniques and personal spiritual work that's coming through. So it's so good to have a group meeting to be able to say, oh my goodness, like for example, last month was Angelic Bliss. It was a witch hazel called Angeli, a lovely yellow sunny one. And it was all about the vision of God and seeing things in that different way.
Oh, how beautiful.
Messenger of God. It was Messenger of God last month, and it was the angels coming through. So it was the chakra gateway for angelic messengers to come through. And the support essence for that was called Angelic Bliss. And people who are taking this were having moments. One lady was in a very busy sort of coffee bar with friends, and she just totally zoned out, and she had most incredible, peaceful, in the middle of all this chaos. And it was like, I don't want to come back from that.
Yes.
But it's a bit like enlightenment, you have to be there to see where it is, and you have to come out of it to see that's what it is. But to be able to get moments of angelic bliss, and a lot of people in the group had that experience in different circumstances, but it was the same thing. It was accessing the angelic bliss. It was the messenger of God. So it was a crown, sub-crown chakra.
Well, that's a magnificent confirmation. So how are you able to do this? I mean, like financially?
Yes, there is a price for the program, and it's £485 for the entire program. But we do that in monthly installments for people as well.
That's wonderful. Yeah.
roughly to £50, and for that they get the set of remedies, they get the personal support, the personal tuition. Joe does emotional coding with people as well, so that all comes into it. And obviously any ongoing essences that come through with that.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot. You guys are kept very, very, very busy throughout this all.
Yeah,
that's just fantastic.
So yeah, because it is very. We found out in doing the June moon, which was all about the strawberry moon, about time. We were all experiencing time jumps and parallel time zones and things. So I can't say it is time intensive because time doesn't exist, but it is there for people. You know, the one-to-one sessions, which are done on Zoom, so it doesn't, you know, you don't have to meet up, and they're recorded for people to keep. They're personal, they're private, they're confidential, but just to be able to talk things through and have a sounding board and make the connections. When did you last feel like that? Oh, that was what was triggering. That was what needed releasing. And that means we can very often go back to the root of it. And I have a beautiful guide that works with me called Willow. Willow was a tree in the healing garden that I had, and his spirit came through incredibly. He spoke to me. He had barbed wire all go through the trunk, and one day I was out there trying to cut out all this barbed wire, and as I was doing so, I just sort of said out loud, who would do this to a tree? Because I was trying to pull it out, and the words came back very clear. We all have barbed wire in our hearts. It is that which shapes us to be the strong, beautiful beings we become. And those words, Willow has worked with me since I had the centre, which was in 1990, and he oversaw the work that I did with the children. And then that progressed to work within a child, which is taking me to the work that I'm doing now. And Willow, through lockdown, I had the call to go back to my healing centre that I no longer had. 2000, I think it was, I had to release that. Willow is no more of the earth plane. I had the call in to go back there, and he was just a skeleton. The garden was a disaster. It was all overgrown. It was very difficult to walk past through this garden. There was rubbish and cans and syringes and things like that. It was a bit like Indiana Jones and a temple of whatever. It took me an hour to get to the garden, and I finally I was in tears.
I would be,
and I just put out my hand to hug Willow, because Willow used to hold me and hug me, and he dropped the branch that had the barbed wire in it in my hand. And so I carried that back. I have that in my room here with me. And we have the Willow final release. And Willow is now, I have it on good authority, he's now an ascended master. He works with me very, very closely. He comes through regularly as one of my guides, very, very dear guide. But he comes in, it's called the Willow final release. And it is for those times when we're holding on with those white knuckles, I'm not letting go of this, but it's like the crown of thorns in Christ's passion. It is the pain. It is where we're ridiculed for the authority that we have within self, and we hold on to that pain and that hurt and that resentment and that unfairness. And what Willow final release does is actually let that go, and that is used a lot at the moment.
I could see that. The need for
but
that.
I have got his story. If anybody wants that, I've got it all written up with photographs and wonderful anecdotes. Some will make you cry, some will make you laugh, of my friendship with Willow. The essences are there. You know, I've got some that have actually been made into, not the final release ones because I haven't got access to them. They were made into sound frequencies, which means I can send them across the world for people to play to water and then take. And these were in his living years. And I've got catkin essence from him, a bark essence from him, and a combination. And because I wanted to have authentic channeling and I didn't want to influence this, this went out to a lady I got in Sedona, and the channeling that she got and the messages she got from them was the same as the ones I was getting. So we have the authentication there as well.
Wonderful.
But I have those as digital remedies, and they're freely available for people as well.
Isn't
so
that
they can just be sent
fantastic?
out and downloaded and played to water.
Hey, it's Christmas time, people. So imagine, do something for yourself and ask for a good gift like this. I mean, how amazing. If you're ready, wow, to be offered this kind of support. So we are very blessed to have you, Lynn. Thank you so much.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share a whole new life that I have had. And who would have thought the way that this came about? But yes, with the self-masteries, thank you for giving me an opportunity to share that with other people, because it's an incredible journey.
Thanks for signing up for this role here. We appreciate it greatly. So I was just thinking that you are so knowledgeable of the science behind the energetics, the quantum science. You seem to really be able to understand and express it, whereas someone like myself could not. So maybe you could tell us a little bit more about how this is possible. You know, people think energy healers, but like,
yeah, I mean, we're at a stage now where neuroscience and physics and metaphysics are becoming the one. It's all joining in now, and it's interesting because my first job was as a biochemist, and that's before I went into teaching. And really, I suppose that's been a kind of bane of my life, because it's made me super analytical and overthink all of the wonderful experiences that I've had, because I've disbelieved them, and then they've happened again, and then in another package and in another way, and it's like, aha. So it's joining up that thing called the quantum dots, and it's a very popular word now, isn't it? We talk about quantum energy and quantum healing and quantum imprinting. And I'd like to talk about that. And I'm going to now bring one of the guides in who will talk to us a little bit about how we go about this. So the guides would say that when these essences are made, like the photocopier that we talked about, where you take the original and you put it in a machine, and then you have copy after copy after copy that comes out on that machine. So that original can go to many, many people. So we do have a rather clever little machine that does that for us. We say that it's clever, but you know what? We let the people try this for themselves, and then they tell us what they think. And if they think that's clever, that's absolutely fine by us. So we know we can keep going with our little machine and with what's happening. So here's the thing: if we were to take one of those little sugar pillules, they're like little tiny balls, little sugar pillules. The homeopathic medicines are made on these things, and of course we know that the homeopathic medicines are made in this photocopying type way, where you have the original and you shake it and dilute it and shake it and dilute it, and you copy it, and then the people go and try that and come back and say, yes, that was very good, thank you. So that is how we make them. And if you were to give them to your scientists and say, oh, what have we got in here, because we have wizardry and magic in here, what is it they're doing, and they take it into their laboratories, you see, their laboratories are not that clever in being able to say, well, this is just sugar, because they will only look at the chemical constituents of it, which is the sugar. The sugar, interestingly enough, it acts as like a little safe. You put things in a safe place and you put a little code on it, and that is what we do when we're making these, of course. The secret to breaking them down is you put them on your tongue and you let them dissolve, and of course that goes into the water, and the body is 80% water, and it gets everywhere it needs to go very, very quickly. So that's the shorthand way, as we would say, of describing that. But what we're actually looking at is, we know that most of the physical world, which is all being shared as an experience, although we all experience that through filters, our own filters, in different ways, most of that has what the scientists would call nothing in there. Because the scientists have got a long, long way to go in their understanding. Only 10 years ago, they found out about DNA, and they did something that was an incredible discovery. It was the human genome discovery. And then the scientists all got together and they talked about junk DNA. And they said, 90% of this is junk DNA. And so they junked it, they binned it because they didn't understand it. And this is where we spoke earlier on of the aha moment. The bit that they binned was the important bit, because that was the energetic bit. It had all the little messengers in it that pass the messages on to make the physical bit work. A little bit like we've been talking about this evening, with the higher self coming in and making the physical body work. We might only see the physical body, but of course it is always being connected. Not just in this lifetime, but in many lifetimes that have been, or many to come. Of course, it doesn't work like that. It all happens at the same time. But this is what it is all about. People have gone off on the illusion of the physical, and they say that is science. And that is very interesting, isn't it? Because the derivation of the very word science, skio, means I know. And really, these people who tipped up around in their white coats really know very little about what is happening. But in the shift that we have been talking about, in the expanded consciousness and awareness that we have been talking about, we know that people are waking up to the fact there is so much more. They're beginning to look in the bottom of the rubbish bins and pull out the junk and say, aha, this is where the true value of this is. So we've been talking about this with the self-mastery. This is that very, very process, isn't it? That's exciting that we have this opportunity to have this conversation now about this. So the quantum and the quantum level, or the QL, as our dear friend, Dr. Hahnemann, talked about, is actually jumping up from the physical atom into another level that shapes and informs and directs that atom to behave in a certain way in certain situations, or not, as the case may be. We are hearing now about all the computer technologists who are doing quantum qubits and quantum computers so that the mega brain computers can have mega brains again. They are coming against some interesting dilemmas in that work, but there's little less publicized about that than perhaps the general consciousness would know about. The media certainly, they don't go down that particular pathway, down that particular avenue. But what this is about is the actual knowledge process is being shifted from the physical, which was only 0.1% of the story, to the 99.9% of the story behind it that is behind the scenes. And this is what people are accessing in all kinds of ways, from their own cellular knowledge, from their akashic, from their intuition, from their relationship with higher self. All this is knowledge that has been carried around within each and every person, each and every living thing, with all that information waiting for expression. And what these times are bringing us to is that access point of expression. And that very, very simply is what you would call your 101, is that right?
Yes.
In quantum thinking.
Excellent. And thank you very much for that. Thank you very much for that. I think it's extremely helpful, especially for people that are a little bit new to this whole thing. But it's mind-blowing for sure. All right, so tell me about this next essence.
The next essence, right. We're in November now. We're coming up to, in about a week's time, just over a week's time, we're coming up to the next full moon. Full moon is at its highest potential, of course. And so, and fulfillment. And so what we've got is the cold moon. It's known as the cold moon. And it's because December in the Northern Hemisphere is the coldest month. And it usually happens just before the shortest day or the longest night. So this month is going to be very much about long nights. It's going to be very much about the cold, certainly here in the UK. People are no longer, because of the energy crisis, able to afford to heat and eat. So it's one or the other.
Yeah.
So it's going to be long, cold nights because of the shift of what is going on, not only in the world, in our countries, our respective countries, and in our society. We are going to be facing the dark night. We have a saying, that long dark night of the soul, where we feel lost. We don't know what we need to get hold of. We don't know what we need to let go of. We don't know what we need to grab onto. And because of everything changing, people are going to be left in this kind of chaos and this kind of confusion, in this kind of upheaval. So this is the time, this is the lunation that we have. The actual remedies, the essences, and the power within us to light the darkness. It's finding the power within us to warm our own lives and the lives of others. It's finding the warmth of kindness, the warmth of heartfelt, the warmth of words, the warmth of thoughts that shine the light in the darkness. And it is with the help and guidance of higher self, it is that divine spark within the darkness of our physicality, of our physical world, that shines through us. It shines through in everything that we do. It is the month of December, the cold moon month. It is a stargate that's opening. We're working with the higher crown chakras now. We're looking at the chakra of unified fields, where everything is coming onto an even playing field. So much has been unbalanced. So much in the last few months has to have been dug out and uprooted. And it's like it's frozen now at this time of year, coming up to the winter solstice, to the shortest day, to the longest night. But it's knowing that within us, that is the illusion of outside. Within us, there is that warmth and that light that projects the way ahead. And that is going to be very pronounced for everybody who is focusing and accessing that unified energy at this time. Can you remember in living memory when things have been unified? Or has it always been, the greed of the many to the detriment of the few, that has caused scarcity, that has caused fear? The unification of this level of energetic vibration and frequency. We have so much coming in at this time, and so much through the stargates at this time. These are higher self stargates. They are higher self. They are unity. The unity of the soul and the spirit and the egoic self, the physical self. The unity of humankind to the planet and the animal and the insect and the flora communities and worlds that share that ground with us. It's that unity of respect, seeing it as equal. We're losing that essence of the big I am for the unified essence of the I am that I am. And I love that I am that I am. And this is a very, very powerful time for people who are on a self-mastery program in a group as we are, or they're treading that lone journey. It is our choice how we do that. But the awareness is to be shared. The belief in the self, the belief in that energy, and the believing of the belief is what is going to be the momentum that takes us forward into some very exciting times and beautiful times as we come into that level of sharing, of collaboration, of community, with the oneness. And we thank you.
Blessed be.
Yes. This is why the money has to go, so that people can share. And it will be exchanges, these token of exchanges.
Yes.
And they will be mutual and they will be agreed. You know, I will come and teach in your school. Can you give me some vegetables to make my soup with? It's that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And there are already small communities that are growing and pockets of it. And I know this because it's happened to me. The more you shine that light, the darker the shadows that are cast.
Yes, until you're the pariah of the building. Well, thank you everybody for being a part of this, and I do hope that you access the links that I will place for you to find our wonderful Lin Porter in the UK and her Wych Hazel program. All right, thanks again.